Got it, you want a motivational style keynote speech on increase penile length, written in an engaging, professional, emotional way that feels like a TEDx YouTube doctor-style talk, inspirational but realistic, not just medical jargon. Why is it that the question, can I increase my penile length, echoes in the minds of millions of men across the world? Why does it feel like such a heavy, personal burden, one that so many carry in silence, never daring to ask openly? The answer lies in the intersection of biology, psychology, and society, a place where curiosity and pressure collide. From a young age, boys are exposed to distorted ideas of masculinity. Locker room conversations, teasing jokes, and cultural myths create a silent competition. A competition where size is seen as proof of manhood. And this curiosity, am I enough? Am I normal? Takes root early. It doesn't matter how educated or successful someone is, the thought can linger, whispering in the background of their mind. But where does this pressure come from? The truth is, it's not just personal insecurity, it's socially engineered. Media exaggerates it, adult films glorify extremes. Even casual conversations can fuel the myth that bigger always means better. Suddenly, curiosity about increasing size becomes more than curiosity. It transforms into anxiety, into self-doubt, into a belief that one's masculinity depends on inches. And here's the powerful reality check. Research shows that most men fall within a completely normal size range. Yet, when men compare themselves not to reality but to unrealistic portrayals, they almost always feel less. This is where curiosity becomes obsession. What if I could just add 1 inch? What if there's a hidden method I haven't tried? The mind spirals and insecurity grows. Science tells us something fascinating. When men are surveyed about what size they believe is ideal, the average response is significantly larger than what most women actually desire or find important. Isn't that surprising? Men overestimate the importance of size, while partners often emphasize confidence, intimacy, and connection over measurement. But society rarely shares this truth, so the pressure continues. And this pressure, it doesn't just affect the bedroom, it affects life. Men carry it into their self-esteem, their relationships, their confidence at work, even their willingness to pursue intimacy. A single thought, am I enough? Can quietly sabotage joy, performance, and identity. That's why this keynote matters. Because curiosity about penile length is not just about anatomy, it's about the human desire for acceptance, validation, and worth. Now let's dig deeper. Why does the human brain obsess over this question in the first place? Psychologists explain it as a mix of evolutionary biology and cultural conditioning. Biologically, humans have always sought signs of fertility, health, and strength. Over time, society twisted those natural instincts into simplified symbols: muscles, height, wealth, and yes, penile size. Culturally, those symbols became exaggerated until they overshadowed reality. That's how a natural curiosity became a social obsession. But here's the lesson: curiosity itself isn't wrong. Asking, can I increase my penile length, is not shameful. It's human. It shows a desire to improve, to feel confident, to embrace one's body. The problem is not the question. The problem is the weight of the pressure behind it. Pressure that turns curiosity into shame. Pressure that makes men chase dangerous shortcuts. Pressure that convinces them that their worth is incomplete without change. Think about this. Why is it that men who are already within the normal range still feel inadequate? Because the question isn't just about size, it's about comparison. Comparison is the thief of joy. The moment you measure yourself against unrealistic standards, you lose perspective. And that's why this keynote is powerful. It challenges us to ask, why am I curious in the first place? Who told me I wasn't enough? Who defined what big enough means? And here's the empowering truth. No society, no rumor, no movie should define your worth. Curiosity about self-improvement is healthy, but when that curiosity is driven by pressure built on myths and comparisons, it becomes destructive. That's when we must pause, step back, and separate fact from fiction. Let's imagine a different perspective. Instead of asking, how do I increase my penile length? What if the question became, how do I increase my confidence? How do I increase my strength, my intimacy, my performance, my happiness? Because in reality, these are the questions that lead to fulfillment, not frustration. These are the questions that empower, not enslave. So yes, curiosity is natural. Every man at some point has probably wondered, am I enough? That's human. But what transforms curiosity into growth is education. Understanding that most men already are enough. Recognizing that pressure comes from outside voices, not inner truth. And realizing that the real measure of masculinity is not size, it's how you live, how you love, how you show up in the world. The curiosity about penile length will never disappear. It's too deeply woven into human psychology. But how we respond to it? That's where the power lies. With knowledge, with confidence, with perspective, we can turn a source of pressure into a moment of empowerment. We can shift from obsession to acceptance, from shame to strength. So the next time this question rises in your mind, can I increase my penile length? Don't let it crush your confidence. Let it spark reflection. Let it drive education. Let it remind you that the pressure you feel is not an accurate reflection of your worth, but a reflection of society's noise. And you have the power to rise above that noise. Do you want me to now expand each keynote one by one in the same style as I, like a full motivational masterclass, or just this one expanded into detail? Why does size carry so much emotional weight? Why does a number, something so biological and so natural, become a burden heavy enough to crush a man's confidence? The answer lies deep within the psychology of self-worth. When a man asks, "Can I increase my penile length?" he is rarely asking only about anatomy. He is asking about identity. He is asking, am I enough? Will I be accepted? Will I be desired? That's the emotional undercurrent hidden beneath the surface of the question. Let's break it down. Society has long tied masculinity to strength, dominance, and physical markers. Muscles, height, voice, and yes, penile size are all exaggerated symbols of manhood. So when a man feels that he does not measure up, literally he fears rejection, he fears ridicule, he fears losing something even more precious than inches, his dignity. This is why the emotional weight is so heavy, because it's not just about the body, it's about the mind. Men start to equate their worth as partners, as lovers, even as human beings, with a physical measurement they cannot easily control. Imagine the constant loop of thoughts. What if she laughs? What if I'm not enough? What if she compares me to someone else? That cycle of fear builds anxiety, and that anxiety often becomes stronger than the physical concern itself. And it doesn't stop there. Studies have shown that men who are insecure about their size often avoid intimacy altogether. They make excuses, distance themselves from partners, and carry shame into relationships. Why? Because they convince themselves they are destined to disappoint before they even try. That emotional weight doesn't just crush confidence in the bedroom. It spills into everyday life. Think about how powerful this is. A man may have intelligence, kindness, humor, success, and yet one insecurity about size can overshadow everything. It's almost tragic, because while he sees himself as less than, his partner may not even share that concern. Research shows that most women and partners place far more importance on emotional closeness, communication, and confidence than size. But men rarely hear that message clearly enough. Instead, they hear society screaming, "Bigger is better." This emotional weight can also distort reality. Men often perceive themselves as smaller than they actually are. Psychologists call this penile dysmorphia, where perception and reality don't match. Isn't that astonishing? A man can literally look at his own body and see it through a distorted lens shaped by shame, pressure, and comparison. But let's be honest, this isn't just biology, it's also culture. Think about the messages men receive. Advertising, films, locker room jokes all plant seeds of doubt, seeds that grow into vines of insecurity. And each time those vines tighten, the emotional weight grows heavier. Until suddenly the man is no longer asking about size, he is asking about worth. Now, why is this important? Because the emotional impact of insecurity can be far more damaging than the physical reality itself. A man may be within the perfectly normal size range, but if he feels inadequate, that feeling becomes his reality. It shapes his behavior, his confidence, his relationships. It creates hesitation where there should be passion. It creates shame where there should be pride. And here's something even more surprising. Performance itself is deeply connected to confidence. Men who are anxious about their size often experience performance issues, erectile difficulties, premature ejaculation. Problems rooted not in biology but in psychology. Isn't that incredible? The fear of not being enough actually becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The emotional weight literally rewires the body's response to intimacy. So what does this tell us? It tells us that size insecurity is not a surface-level issue. It is an emotional battle. It's a storm of shame, fear, and doubt. And the man caught inside it doesn't need judgment. He needs understanding. He needs education, reassurance, perspective, because the heaviest weight he carries is not in his body, it's in his mind. Here's a powerful way to see it. Imagine a man who believes his partner will judge him. He hides, withdraws, and never allows real intimacy to bloom. Now imagine another man, same size, same body, but full of confidence. He enters intimacy with energy, with pride, with openness. Which man do you think creates a better experience? It's never about inches, it's about the emotions you bring into the room. But here's the twist. Many men never realize this truth because the emotional weight blinds them. They chase pills, pumps, and promises instead of healing the root problem, their mindset. They spend years searching for physical change when what they really need is emotional liberation. So when a man says, "I wish I could increase my penile length," what he may really be saying is, "I wish I could increase my confidence. I wish I could free myself from shame. I wish I could feel proud of who I am." And that is the real heart of the question. Because the weight he carries is not measured in centimeters or inches, it's measured in fear. And once that fear is lifted, once confidence is restored, something incredible happens. He realizes he was enough all along. When men ask, "Can I increase my penile length?" what they are often searching for is truth. They want a clear answer. They want reality, not rumors. And here's the reality check that shocks many. Science does not match the myths we've been told our entire lives. First, let's talk about what is normal. Research from large-scale studies across different countries has revealed something fascinating. The average erect penile length is around 5 to 5.5 inches, and the average girth is about 4.5 to 5 inches. That's the scientific baseline. Yet how many men believe this? Most imagine the average to be larger. Why? Because of constant exposure to unrealistic portrayals in media, especially adult films where only the most extreme sizes are highlighted. Now here's the question: if most men are average and average is far smaller than the media suggests, why do so many feel inadequate? This is the reality check. Perception has been hijacked. Men are not comparing themselves to reality, they are comparing themselves to illusions. And illusions are dangerous because they can never be matched. Let's add another layer. Studies also show that the majority of partners, women, men, anyone involved, do not rank size as the most important factor in intimacy. In fact, surveys repeatedly confirm that things like confidence, affection, communication, stamina, and emotional closeness rank far higher. Isn't that powerful? The very thing men obsess over is not what most partners are looking for, yet insecurity blinds them to this truth. So what about the science of increasing size? Here's where reality often disappoints those searching for miracles. There are only a few medical procedures that can truly alter length or girth, and they are almost always surgical, expensive, and risky. We're talking about procedures like ligament release, fat injections, or grafting. And these carry complications from scarring to dysfunction. Is it worth risking long-term harm for a few centimeters? For most men, the answer is no. Then come the so-called miracle solutions: pills, creams, exercises, vacuum pumps. And here's the hard truth: none of these offer permanent, safe, clinically proven enlargement. Pills and supplements, they often contain herbs or chemicals with no proven effect on size. Pumps, they may create temporary swelling, but it fades. Stretching exercises like jelqing have been around for centuries, but modern science shows no strong evidence of long-term effectiveness and real risks of injury. This is reality, that most of the market is built on exploiting insecurity, not solving it. So what can actually be done? There are medically approved devices like penile traction therapy. In some studies, consistent, careful use of traction devices over months has shown modest, measurable increases, sometimes up to 1 to 2 centimeters. But here's the key: it requires discipline, patience, and proper guidance. It is not instant, it is not miraculous, and it is not without discomfort. That's reality, not a magic trick, but a slow, demanding process. And here's something even more eye-opening. The reality check is not only about what is possible physically, it's also about what really matters psychologically. Men who seek enlargement often discover that the pursuit itself does not bring the satisfaction they hoped for. Why? Because the issue was never purely physical, it was emotional. Once a man realizes this, he understands that chasing size without addressing mindset is like pouring water into a broken cup. No matter how much you add, it will never feel full. This is where perspective changes everything. Imagine this! Two men, both with the same size. One accepts the reality he is within the normal range. His worth is not defined by inches. His confidence is built on more than anatomy. The other denies reality. He obsesses, he compares, he doubts. Who do you think lives with more freedom, more joy, more intimacy? That's the real difference, not the number on a ruler, but the story you tell yourself about that number. Science also gives us another crucial reality check. Sexual satisfaction does not scale with size in the way men imagine. Many partners actually report discomfort with larger sizes. For them, emotional connection, foreplay, and technique create far more pleasure. Isn't that ironic? Men chase extremes, but the reality is that balance, compatibility, and confidence matter far more. And let's not forget, health is the foundation. A man who is fit, strong, energetic, and emotionally connected often outperforms a man with more length, but no stamina, no communication, no care for his partner. So ask yourself, do you want inches or do you want impact? That's the reality check that flips the question upside down. So yes, when someone asks, can I increase my penile length? The reality is both simple and powerful. Yes, there are limited, modest, medical ways. No, there is no magic pill, no instant cure. And most importantly, yes, you are likely already enough, because size is not the key to satisfaction, confidence is. This reality check liberates you from false promises. It tells you the truth that obsession drains you, myths deceive you, but knowledge empowers you. And once you embrace the reality, scientific, emotional, relational, you stop chasing shadows and start building strength where it truly matters. When men search late at night, typing nervously into a browser, how to increase penile length, what do they find? A flood of promises, pills, pumps, creams, exercises, surgeries. It's a marketplace fueled by hope but built on myths. And here's the critical truth. Most of what you see is designed to exploit your insecurity, not solve it. That's why separating myths from facts is so powerful. It gives back control. Let's start with one of the biggest myths. Magic pills or supplements can make you bigger. How many ads have you seen claiming extra inches in weeks or doctor-approved growth formula? The fact, there is no scientific evidence that any pill or natural supplement permanently increases size. None. At best, some supplements may temporarily improve blood flow, leading to firmer erections. But that's not enlargement, it's optimization. The myth survives because people want quick, effortless solutions. But the fact is, biology doesn't bend to marketing slogans. Another myth. Gel king or stretching exercises guarantee growth. This technique, promoted for centuries, involves forcefully stretching the penis to increase size. The reality? There's no clinical evidence proving long-term safety or effectiveness. In fact, many men report injuries, scarring, pain, even erectile dysfunction from doing it incorrectly. The myth thrives because it feels logical, stretch something and it should get longer, right? But the fact is, the penis is not a muscle you can train like biceps. It's a delicate organ with blood vessels and tissue that can be damaged if abused. What about pumps? Vacuum devices create temporary swelling by drawing blood into the penis. Does it look larger afterward? Yes, for a short while. But is it permanent? Absolutely not. The fact is, pumps were designed as medical tools to help men achieve erections, not to permanently increase size. Prolonged or improper use can even cause bruising, burst vessels, or scarring. The myth exists because the temporary change tricks the eye, but reality always snaps back. Then there's the myth of secret herbal formulas, or ancient remedies. You'll see promises of roots, oils, and exotic blends claiming to add inches overnight. Fact check, no traditional herb or oil has ever been clinically proven to increase penile length. Many of these so-called remedies contain unknown or unsafe ingredients that can cause skin reactions or worse. Isn't it shocking? Something that feels natural may actually be more dangerous than modern medicine. Now, what about surgery? Here we move into dangerous territory because this is one of the few areas where facts do show some possibility. Surgical methods like ligament release or fat injections can add centimeters. But the myth is that surgery is a simple fix. The fact, these are complex, risky procedures with potential side effects, scarring, loss of sensation, erectile dysfunction, deformities. And often, the psychological satisfaction after surgery is lower than expected because the root issue, confidence, isn't solved. So while the fact acknowledges enlargement is medically possible, the myth oversells it as easy, safe, or universally successful. Here's another widespread myth. Bigger means better pleasure. This is perhaps the most destructive lie of all. Fact, studies consistently show that most partners do not rank size as their top concern. Technique, intimacy, communication, and emotional connection consistently matter more. Many even report that overly large size can cause discomfort. Isn't that surprising? The very thing men are chasing as an advantage may actually create challenges in real relationships. But why do these myths survive? Because they tap into emotions, fear, shame, hope. Marketers know that when a man feels insecure, he is vulnerable. They use language like, "Are you enough?" or "Prove your masculinity," to trigger panic, then offer a so-called solution. It's manipulation dressed as medicine, and unless you know the facts, it's easy to fall for it. Let's flip it now. What are the actual facts worth knowing? Fact. Most men are already within the normal range, and perception of too small is often distorted by comparison, not reality. Fact. Sexual satisfaction is influenced far more by psychological and relational factors than size. Fact. The only medically documented ways to modestly increase size are surgical procedures or consistent traction therapy, and both require patience, professional guidance, and acceptance of risks. Fact. Lifestyle improvements, exercise, diet, reducing stress, can maximize erectile performance and make you appear larger when erect, even though this is not actual enlargement. Sometimes the difference between insecurity and confidence is simply better health. And here's the most empowering fact of all: confidence can outperform inches. A man who believes in his worth, who approaches intimacy with presence and care, often creates more pleasure than a man obsessed with measurement. That's not opinion. It's backed by studies on partner satisfaction. Isn't that powerful? So when you strip away the noise, what remains is clear. Myths are seductive because they promise shortcuts. Facts are harder because they demand acceptance. But once you embrace facts, you free yourself from endless chasing. You stop wasting time, money, and energy on lies, and you start building confidence on truth. Because at the end of the day, when you ask, "Can I increase my penile length?" the most important thing isn't whether the answer is yes or no, it's whether you know enough to separate fact from fiction. Because clarity is power, and once you have power, no myth can control you again. Why is it that two men with the exact same body can live completely different lives? Why does one walk with confidence, charm, and presence, while the other hides in shame, carrying insecurity like a secret chain? The difference is not in their anatomy, it is in their perspective. That's the true power we must explore. When someone asks, "Can I increase my penile length?" the hidden question is often, "Can I increase how I feel about myself?" Because in reality, size is not the enemy, perspective is. A man can be within the normal range, even above average, and still feel inadequate if his mind keeps telling him, "You're not enough." Isn't that astonishing? Reality and perception can live worlds apart. Perspective shapes everything. If a man sees himself as small, weak, or unworthy, then no matter the measurement, he will carry that belief like a heavy weight. But if he sees himself as confident, desirable, and capable, he radiates strength, even if he hasn't changed physically at all. That's the strange, beautiful truth. It is not the body alone that defines experience, but the story the mind tells about the body. Let's look at the research. Time and time again, studies have shown that women and partners value qualities like emotional connection, attentiveness, and confidence far more than penile length. In fact, many report that excessive size can create discomfort rather than pleasure. Yet why do men still obsess? Because perspective is distorted by culture, by unrealistic portrayals, by locker room comparisons. Change the perspective and you change the meaning of size entirely. Think of it like this: a man who believes bigger is always better will always feel pressure to measure up, but a man who believes pleasure comes from connection, confidence, and intimacy will focus on what he can control: his energy, his fitness, his communication. Which perspective leads to more satisfaction? It's obvious, the second. Yet many men never shift their perspective, so they remain trapped in a cycle of comparison. Now here's the empowering part. Perspective is not fixed. It can be changed. It can be trained just like the body. When you shift from asking, "Am I big enough?" to asking, "Am I bringing enough passion, confidence, and presence?" you unlock power no measurement can give. Because suddenly, the focus is no longer on what you lack, it's on what you can create. And here's where intimacy itself proves the point. Sexual satisfaction is not a mathematical equation of inches. It is a dance of emotions, trust, timing, and care. Partners remember how you made them feel, not the number on a ruler. Isn't that powerful? They remember the laughter, the closeness, the energy, the intimacy. That's perspective. Choosing to value the things that truly matter rather than obsess over the things that don't. But let's take it deeper. Perspective doesn't just affect the bedroom. It affects life. A man who believes he is less than carries that energy into relationships, work, friendships, even posture. Insecurity leaks into every area. But when perspective shifts, when he says, "I am enough," My value is not measured in inches but in impact. Suddenly he stands taller, he speaks stronger, he dares to show up fully. The world doesn't change. His perspective does. And that changes everything. Think about it. Two men of the same size meet two different partners. One enters intimacy apologizing for himself, nervous, hesitant. The other enters with confidence, humor, and presence. Which one creates a lasting memory? It's not the measurement, it's the mindset. That's the undeniable proof of perspective. Of course, changing perspective doesn't happen overnight. Years of comparison and cultural conditioning can't be erased with one speech. But awareness is the first step. The moment a man realizes, wait, maybe it's not my size that's holding me back, but my perspective about my size. That's the breakthrough. From there, he can rebuild his confidence not on myths or false promises, but on truth. And truth tells us this: the greatest intimacy is created not by length, but by presence. Not by inches, but by energy. Not by size, but by confidence. Once a man understands this, he stops chasing external change and starts building internal strength. That is the true power of perspective. It transforms insecurity into empowerment. Here's a simple example. Imagine a man insecure about his body. He hides, he avoids intimacy, he feels rejected before he even begins. Now imagine he shifts perspective. He starts working out, not to look bigger, but to feel stronger. He communicates openly with his partner, not to seek validation, but to create connection. He sees intimacy not as a test, but as an experience to share. Suddenly, his entire reality shifts, even though his body has not. Isn't that incredible? Perspective doesn't deny reality, it reframes it. It doesn't say size doesn't exist. It says size doesn't define. It doesn't erase curiosity about growth. It balances it with gratitude for what already is. And that balance, that shift, is where freedom lies. So the next time a man asks, can I increase my penile length? The most life-changing answer might be yes, but even if you never did, what you can increase infinitely is your confidence, your energy, your connection, your perspective. Because perspective is the one enlargement tool that never fails, never harms, and always multiplies. So after all the questions, after all the myths, after all the pressure, what truly matters is this: what do I do next? Because knowledge without action changes nothing. The real transformation comes not from wishing or comparing, but from choosing, from acting, from building a life where confidence grows stronger than insecurity. When a man asks, can I increase my penile length? What he is often seeking is permission to feel enough. But here's the motivation. Stop waiting for permission. You already have the power to take control of your body, your health, your mindset, your relationships. And the moment you take action, the question of size begins to shrink, while your sense of worth begins to expand. First, let's talk about health. The foundation of sexual confidence is physical well-being. Strong blood flow, stamina, and energy don't come from pills. They come from exercise, nutrition, and rest. A man who trains his body, who eats to fuel strength, who manages stress, naturally experiences firmer erections, more endurance, and a healthier sense of self. Isn't that a kind of enlargement? Not in centimeters, but in performance, in presence, in power. Second, let's talk about confidence. Confidence isn't something you're born with. It's something you build one choice at a time. Stand tall. Speak with conviction. Take care of your appearance. When you walk into a room believing in your value, people feel it before you even say a word. In intimacy, this confidence is electric. It makes your partner feel secure, desired, chosen. And here's the secret. Confidence doesn't ask, am I big enough? Confidence declares, I am enough. Third, let's talk about communication. Many men forget that intimacy is a shared experience, not a performance. The most satisfied partners are not with the man who measured longest, but with the man who listened, cared, asked, responded. Isn't that powerful? The act of talking, connecting, and being emotionally present can transform an encounter far more than size ever could. So take action, not in chasing inches, but in building conversations, trust, and closeness with your partner. Now let's confront the uncomfortable truth. Many men waste years chasing enlargement methods that don't work. Pills that drain wallets, devices that promise but don't deliver, myths that keep them trapped in hope and disappointment. What if all that energy, all that time, all that money was redirected into building fitness, learning, and self-growth? The results would be undeniable, not only in intimacy, but in career, in relationships, in life itself. Isn't that the action worth taking? Here's the motivation. Greatness in intimacy comes from greatness in mindset. You can have all the physical advantages in the world, but if you walk into intimacy full of fear, shame, or doubt, none of it matters. On the other hand, a man with average size but extraordinary confidence, care, and presence becomes unforgettable. That's the truth no advertisement will ever tell you. So the question is not, can I increase my penile length? The deeper, more transformative question is, can I increase my discipline, my fitness, my confidence, my connection, my joy? And the answer to that is always yes! Action means building daily habits that serve you. Lifting weights to boost testosterone and strength, practicing mindfulness to control anxiety, eating clean to fuel energy, resting to recharge. Every step builds a body and mind that radiate vitality. And that vitality shows up everywhere. Your partner sees it, feels it, responds to it. That's not illusion. That's impact. Motivation also means breaking free from comparison. Every time you measure yourself against a myth, you shrink your spirit. But every time you focus on your growth, you expand your world. Why? Because comparison chains you, but action frees you. You can't control society's standards, but you can control how you live, how you love, how you lead. And here's the most inspiring part. Once you take action, once you commit to building confidence and connection, something amazing happens. You stop asking the question, am I enough? And you start living the answer. You discover that true enlargement is not in the body, but in the life you create. Enlargement of health. Enlargement of passion, enlargement of self-worth. So take the energy that insecurity steals and redirect it into fitness, into love, into personal growth, into courage. Because the real enlargement, it is the enlargement of your mindset, your strength, your presence, your life. And that is something no myth, no false promise, no insecurity can ever take away.